Hey you guys, I think I want to do something with this lens a little bit, back it up a little bit. I wanted to talk about a subject briefly because we are heading into fall and new chicken owners may want to get this information. I'm not sure where it is on my channel. I know I've talked about this before, but this doesn't take very long. This has to do with, of course, as the title says, do chickens need heat in the winter? And a lot of people will say, oh, absolutely not. And usually that's the case. And also it depends on where you are. I mean, I'm in the south, but I'm in the mountains. So we have a whole different climate than they do down around metro Atlanta. And we are in the mountains. We're in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, and so we have a different climate at my elevation of almost 2,000 feet than say my sons do living down in, I have one son who lives in the mountains, but he's, a little further south of me, and the other son lives in the suburbs. So it's everywhere's a little different climates. But the real answer is it depends. A fully feathered young bird who is, past the chick stage, like Iris and Mace, they are going on 12 weeks old, and they're basically considered adults as far as, they're not as big as the adults, but they're completely feathered. They're getting some size on them. And so there's not a whole lot of difference between them and the adults at this point as far as needing heat in the wintertime. Of course, they're bantam coaches. They're small birds, but they have feathered legs and they are very well equipped for some cooler weather. But generally, chickens don't need heat in the wintertime, as long as you have a draft-free coop. Now, I'm not talking, you got to have ventilation, but ventilation is different than drafts. Generally, ventilation is higher, drafts are lower. You don't want winds blowing through past them on the roost while they're sleeping as the temperatures are dropping overnight. But a fully feathered, healthy bird generally does not need heat in the winter. In general, there are exceptions to a lot of these things. If a bird is very tiny, like I had Belgian Danvers, they are smaller than Bantam Cochins. They are a true Bantam breed. There's no large fowl counterpart to a Belgian Danver. There's no large fowl Belgian Danver like there is in the Cochins. You have large fowl Cochins and Bantam Cochins. Belgian Danvers are a true Bantam. They are very tiny. They are second only to the tiniest chicken in the world, which is the Serama. Seramas are like, they're really tiny. Belgian Danvers are a little bit larger than that. They don't have feathered legs. They have what we call pea combs. But they're very small birds. I always put a little bit of heat in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, for my Belgian Danvers, especially when they got older. There's one exception right there: age. If you have birds that are aging, and a lot of times when they're aging, they lose a lot of the body mass of the younger birds, those birds may require some heat. Birds who are ill, they cannot regulate their body heat as well as birds who are healthy. And now, I'm not a respiratory disease. I advocate not keeping a bird who has a respiratory illness in a flock. I'm talking about other kinds of illness, reproductive malfunctions, or some other type of illness. And if you think they're dying of cancer, whatever. But a bird who is ill and not in the best of health may need heat in the winter. A bird who is in a molt and doesn't even have the feathers to cover the body. It's like you walking out in the dead of winter and forgetting to wear your coat. If you go out without a coat, humans can withstand a lot of extreme temperatures in the wintertime, but you can't do it without the proper covering. It's the same with a chicken. If they are semi-naked in their molt and the winds are blowing and it's cold, they're not going to be able to regulate their body temperature like they normally would. A chicken's body temperature, their normal body temp, ranges around 102 degrees, so they have a higher body temperature anyway. But without their feathers, they're vulnerable. And chickens don't have antifreeze for blood. Same as dogs. People leave some of these dogs out without any kind of shelter in the winter. Shame on them. Chickens are the same. Chickens can actually freeze to death. I know that for a fact because my late friend Lady Hawk had a neighbor who never gave his chickens a coop to be in. He left them in a dog kennel outside in the middle of the Kentucky winter. They froze to death on the roost. So no, chickens don't have antifreeze for blood. Even well-feathered chickens. These are domesticated chickens. These are not wild birds. These are domesticated animals here. So if you have an old bird, if you have a naked bird, if you have an ill bird, I would suggest that you do give them a spot somewhere. No, I'm not saying heat the whole coop, but if you have a spot that they can get under if they need to warm up. Now, as far as these infrared, these big 250-watt heat lamps, be very careful with those. The brackets on those things can fail. If they fall into the shavings or the hay or whatever you're using for bedding, they can catch fire and you will burn down your coop and kill all your animals. But they also have these flat panel radiant heaters that are made for barns that you can put in your chicken coop if you want to spend a little bit more money. They are much safer than the other and now I use heat lamps, and I use the little, it's a ceramic bulb. It doesn't have any light to it. They get very, very hot, and they can break though. The what do you call it? The base of that, I've had those actually break where the thing broke and hung down. And I always put on these brooder lamps, these the guards, I always put something like hardware cloth underneath them. I don't use their little wire guards. I put something in it so that if a bulb actually falls, it falls on wire and it holds it there. I also secure it 10 ways to Sunday. Every single lamp is secured at least 3 ways. So, and it's also put in a place where they can't, if they fly or they jump up, they're not going to hit it. So there are ways to secure those, but they are not as safe as a flat panel wall heater. I've known a lot of people who use those. So that's what I'm talking about. That's my entire speech about chickens in winter. Do they need heat in winter? It depends. It depends on several factors. Generally, a healthy, well-feathered chicken, young, doesn't generally need heat in the winter. Now, you've got some breeds that have the big combs, and they may get frostbite. I have a friend in Wisconsin who, her chickens the roosters always lose all the points on their combs every winter because it's Wisconsin and it's dang cold up there. So that's enough of that. Second subject I want to talk about, and I just heard about this, and I know several channels have apparently talked about it, including Riverside Homestead, or I think that's the name of it. Steve Smith mentioned that channel and mentioned this. Apparently the USDA is talking about registering your garden with the government. Now, they say they're talking about like church gardens, community gardens. Be part of the effort to feed the world. Register your garden. We know the government, and we know that's usually the first step. Well, first of all, if it's the community garden, it's for the community. It's not for the government. I don't recall the government giving me any seeds, tilling my land, weeding my garden, canning my produce. I don't recall the government ever helping me with anything. So I put that along in the category of putting a meter on my private water well, for which I pay to maintain. If it breaks, I have to pay for it. I buy the equipment. It comes from 400 feet down, and it's for my private use. And I'm not putting a meter on my water well for them to charge me for my own water. So, of course, my answer to that is just no. Not now, not ever, not for any reason. I don't want to feed the world. If everybody fed themselves, we wouldn't have to be worried about everybody else now, would we? And Oh, there's so many things I could say about this that I just think YouTube is going to slap me down for. Let's just say they can kiss my southern grits. They can just go where the sun don't shine. They can go where it's nice and hot. No, just no. What comes next after they do the community gardens, and then they say, well, we think private gardens need to be registered. We can't have people growing all this produce. They might be using unsafe practices like using chicken poop for fertilizer. We're going to have to supervise these people because they can't take care of themselves. No, that's the problem. They can take care of themselves. That's why they don't like it. We need to redistribute this produce. These people are growing far too much for their family's use. If they can can things and put them away on shelves, that means they're growing far too much for their own use. So we're going to have to help people who are just not as fortunate. Honey, gardens don't rely on fortune. They rely on hard work and sweat equity. So I think you might want to check that out. One lady said, the USDA wants us to register our gardens. What kind of fools do they take us for? And there's to be some people, and I think my husband's family is one of them, will say, well, it's the law, we have to do it. Well, they don't grow gardens, but if they did, that's what they would say. No, there's such a thing as immoral and constitutional laws. And no, I don't have to obey any of those. Oh, that, I can't even begin. I could rant for 2 hours on this one thing. But, what would you do if some government bureaucrat showed up with a clipboard in your property and wanted to talk to you about your garden, what you're growing, what are you growing, how much do you get, do you actually know how to can your food? And they want to, people are all too happy to talk about their gardens normally, and people love to talk about their gardens and what they're doing and show them off. No. Nobody's taking food out of my family's mouth. So think about what you would do. We were talking about what you would do if the FBI showed up at your door in the middle of the night like they're doing now for people who just simply say, this guy's crazy. I'm the White House, the guy in the White House. We need the other president back. We need our former president back. You say one little thing like that and the FBI is going to show up at your door. So what would you do if somebody showed up at your house and said, oh, do you grow a garden? Or we see your garden, or depending on where it is. Tell me what all you're growing this year, and how much food do you get out of your garden? We're just doing a survey. No, don't answer any government surveys. Don't answer any questions. Just like always, don't answer any questions and invite them to get the hell off your property. I don't even know where this is going to go. We never know. These things start with baby steps. They get their toe in the door, and next thing you know, they're throwing it open and they're slamming you to the ground. So just research that. USDA wants you to register gardens. And of course they're going to say, oh, it's not on private property. It's just your community or church gardens or whatever. That's none of their business either. Because that's not for everybody else. That's for the community or the church or whoever's growing the garden, whoever's doing the work. That's who it belongs to. Anyway, yeah, disturbing, isn't it? And one of the first things I thought of was, yeah, and that's why Castro seized my family's farms, their sugarcane and their sawmill operation and their cattle. That's why they seized my family's farms. What's to stop that from happening here? This is the way we're headed. This is what we're doing. This is what it's all about. Socialism. Everybody works to feed people who don't work. Well, it's not everybody works. That's the thing. It never ends up as everybody works. It's like some people work and everybody else benefits from your work. That's usually the way it works. So, yeah. Start thinking about musing over something like that happening here. Because people in Venezuela and Cuba understand about that. And look what happened to their countries. It's nothing good about either one of them anymore. Not much good about this one anymore either. So this is ramping up, and we have, if this man lives, he's got 2 more years to keep the wrecking ball swinging on this country. Okay, so maybe in November you take back the House, but still, you're not in the White House yet. And even then, even if Trump was reelected, that's only 4 years, people. 4 years of trying to undo 4 years of disaster is not enough. So never breathe a sigh of relief if you think your side's winning, if you want to call it winning. I don't know. Bad things are coming. And every time I turn around, there's something else that makes me go, oh crap. You can't be serious. It doesn't really surprise me that they're doing this, but it infuriates me. And it should infuriate you. Keep growing your gardens. And maybe you should put security cameras out there. Seriously. Maybe you should put security camera pointed at your garden. Make sure that nobody can get in it. Yeah. Electric fence with some solar charger might be good too. If you hear some human scream in the middle of the night, you can go out there and do what you need to with him. So I'll talk to y'all later. I'm not going to keep this going. It's already been too long. I didn't intend to stay here this long, but it's like just shaking my head so much I'm going to get whiplash. Talk to y'all later. Bye.